Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into this. And this episode won't feel too dissimilar to those film finding ones that we've done, but this will be less time intensive and not as detailed. We will look at, like I said, the performance of Terry Rozier, as I mentioned prior, against the Milwaukee Bucks. We will look at offensive plays only, break down some of the actions that we see, how he and his teammates set up the points. Some of these plays will be less involved than others, not as intricate, but that's just how it always is with basketball. Some players just go out and make plays. It's not always about the X's and O's. And then, having said that, we will do our best to illustrate the plays, but there is a video component to this for our BuzzBeat Plus subscribers. That video was already in your inbox this morning. For the rest of you guys, that premiere will be on YouTube on Thursday, August 17th at 11 a.m. So that's the housekeeping stuff. Let's get into these clips. The Hornets won this game 138-109 on the road. Rozier finished with 39 points, with actually only one of those points coming in the fourth quarter. This was a blowout. 9 of 14 from two, 6 of 15 from three, 4 assists, 2 rebounds, and 1 steal. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the first clip. Hopefully, I've got this clip pulled up correctly. And what we've got here is a transition play, 3-on-3 with Jalen McDaniels bringing the ball up the court. It's very early in the game. Hornets are down 5-6. It's probably one of the few times they were actually down in this game.
Mhm.
And you see that Drew Holiday steps up on defense to stop the ball, and that leaves Lopez closest to Rozier on this possession. And the pass that he receives, it's an awkward one. He's a little bit unbalanced on the sideline, but he does stay in. And so he gets the ball on the right wing, drives it in. He tries to create some room for himself, but he's giving up about a foot right here to Lopez. So it's going to take a lot for him to score. And we talked about this with Nick Smith Jr. on a previous episode where he used a very similar move where he did this like fake scoop shot that you see Rondo do a lot, and he's able to get just enough space before he hits this fadeaway over Lopez. And one thing that I didn't notice about in this game, I kind of listed off the 2 point stats to begin with, but a lot of mid-range stuff from Rozier. I know he was good from behind the arc as well, but I just like the ability to kind of create enough space because of the height disadvantage he has here.
Yeah, able to get a cross match and transition. The Hornets did a nice job running in this game, and Rozier was the beneficiary of a few of those transition or semi-transition possessions here. And like by the time he gets going, the Bucks have five guys back and are matched up, but obviously they're cross matched. They've got Pat Connaughton on Plumlee. Plumlee took advantage of some size mismatches he had in this game as well. If you have the visual component going, I think PJ Washington does a nice job of filling to the corner. Not like he sprints to the corner, but he still does a nice job filling to the corner that makes sure that Giannis can't, pack into the paint and help Lopez here. He's got to sort of respect PJ's spot up shooting gravity in the corner where he's a very good corner 3 point shooter. And we'll talk about this a little bit more, I think, when we look at some like true sort of like half court possessions in this game. But the Bucks are an interesting team for both the Hornets, given some of their personnel, and like Rozier in particular. I think the Bucks are maybe the sort of the most famous drop defense in the
Yeah.
NBA, right? Like this has been their DNA for several years now with Mike Budenholzer and Brooke Lopez and Giannis. And I think at least going back to their title year, they've shown a little bit more flexibility, and they can move the lineups around with Giannis and with Bobby Portis, and they can get to some different schemes guarding ball screens and off screen actions or off ball actions. But for the most part, when they're in their base defense, it's drop. And with those drop concepts, the Hornets are able to open up a lot of catch and shoot opportunities for Terry Rozier. So by having, whomever's playing center in this game, it was usually Plumlee or Mark Williams, but other times it's been, Nick Richards or something like that. But when they set screens for Terry, Brooke Lopez is usually in the paint, and so he's able to come off, catch, and even with good, even if it's someone like Drew Holiday or Javon Carter, like very good screen navigators, he's still able to curl or come off those screens and have room to get up shots. And Terry, this was a down year for him efficiency wise. We can talk about that, and there are some very like obvious reasons that can explain for that. But when he gets hot, he's a tough guy to match up with if you're going to sit in the drop. And early in this game, I mean, the Hornets came out, making jumpers. PJ, LaMelo, Rozier, and they got the Bucks out of their base defense before the first quarter even ended. So, and I'm sure we'll be able to get to that stuff a little bit more. But yeah, here just Terry getting a cross match and using some of his sort of like funky shot making abilities to get like a fading hook shot off a little pirouette in the lane over the top of one of the best defensive fives in the world in Brook Lopez.
Yeah, it was one of those games where, I guess the shots were falling. You're playing a very good team in Milwaukee. I don't know if you mentioned this at the top of the recording or not, but like you said, they were not at full health per se. They did not have Middleton, but regardless, to come out and take the lead so quickly in the first quarter, I think they scored 50 some points. Was it is
Yeah,
that something like that in the first
yeah, it
quarter?
was. Yes, it was. Yes, I think it's Rozier. Someone scores right at the end of the first quarter to put them above the 50-point mark. Again, against one of the best defenses, the top five defense in the NBA too. No Gordon Hayward for the Hornets in this game either. So, but for the most part, it was a healthy LaMelo game. Cody Martin, and this was also, I guess, no Nick Richards either because Mark Williams was in the backup 5 minutes in this matchup.
Yeah, whenever I see Cody Martin in these highlights, I'm like, are we in the right year? Are we in the right season?
Yeah, you're like looking around to see if Bismack Biombo is on the
Yeah,
court
right,
too, or
right.
something like that. Yeah.
All right, the second clip that we have queued up here is a defensive clip that turns into offense. This is
Hmm.
again early in the first quarter. A lot of these highlights will come in the first two quarters, just because that's where most of Rozier's plays came from. So what you're seeing here, as I pause it, Plumlee and PJ are doubling near the logo, and that obviously leaves somebody open. And there's Lopez down there on the block, and actually LaMelo does a good job of kind of defending two people in space here,
Hmm.
having an extra guy near him. You almost wonder if they could have done a little bit better, the Bucks that is, to kind of space things out. But he is able to guard two players at once, and you've also got Rozier on Drew Holiday. I do want to watch him as this transition play does occur, and so once when the pass is made, Lamelo is able to get the deflection, the steal, and then Rozier here has already created so much ground on his man Drew Holiday that Drew Holiday is not going to be able to guard him in transition. Uh, Now you've got Giannis right here that's defending Rozier, which is obviously another height mismatch. But I just like the way that Rozier not only anticipates the transition play, and you see the gap that he creates with his man Drew Holiday, but just his aggression and grabbing this ball and getting to the rim. I'm surprised that Giannis wasn't able to, I guess, affect this shot a little bit more at the very
Hmm.
least. But he's gonna get a bucket here or a foul, which he gets a bucket. Just the aggression there by Terry Rozier. I'm surprised he attacked Giannis so aggressively and so assertively there.
Yeah, it almost feels like this could have been just like a Terry Rozier catch and shoot three off the hit ahead from
Yeah.
Lamelo. But a couple of things that jump out to me before we circle back to Rozier. The first is like we've talked. How much have we talked over? Even before the 2020 draft about Lamelo's defensive anticipation, his feel, and that's been probably the best part of his defense, which has been much maligned in certain respects since he got to the NBA. But some of the stuff he's done very well has been this kind of stuff. Like when the Hornets are trapping, or in this case, sort of like a kind of a junk defense. Something that they did, this is another thing I want to bring up. I think they did this against Luca later in the season when they had that like 2 game stretch where they basically ended Dallas's season. And here, yeah, the Hornets were doing this. If Giannis was initiating, the Hornets were going to have, PJ was guarding him, and they were going to send Mason Plumlee, the tallest guy on the court, out there to be helper. And then you put LaMelo in that free safety role here. So, I don't know, a couple interesting things going on. Again, sort of like a junk defense that Steve Clifford used on more than one occasion this season to try to like neutralize a really big time star player, like one of the best 5 players in the world or whatever with Giannis and Luca. And then again, just like LaMelo with his free safety, the feel for the game, his anticipation, and then like it's not like this is like an amazing hit ahead pass that LaMelo has to Terry Rozier, but it's just part of his DNA to go ahead and get that ball up, get it going quickly. And I think, as you sort of pointed out, Richie, if you have the video up, like the Bucks aren't in bad defensive position necessarily. Like Giannis is like seems to have a decent, somewhat of an angle, and like he's a step, further deeper in the court than Rozier. But Terry's makes a nice, aggressive move to get downhill. But I just think LaMelo's hit ahead pass does a nice job, sort of like pushing them into this look. And that's something the Hornets missed a lot last season with LaMelo missing so many games. Is just the quick strike transition secondary offense that comes simply because of this guy's like genius and stylistic preferences with playing the game.
Yeah, we missed that last year, or at least in certain points because he was injured for a good chunk of that. So, um, again, early offense here puts the Hornets up 9-6, and we will get on with clip number 3 after we watch this one more time through. The third clip is also going to be coming early in the first quarter. The Hornets are up 14-8. We'll let it play one time through.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe you had an extended clip, not only prior to this, but also after this. So there is like a two-way aspect to this clip. I'm only showing the offensive side to this, but if you're watching on the screen here, it starts. Well, it doesn't start, but it starts with an Iverson cut. But we end up on the left side of the court with the ball in Rozier's hand, and we have like a little angled ball screen, empty side. And Brian, I guess we probably should explain this to the listeners and the watchers. What is a empty ball screen, and what maybe are the benefits of doing something like this? Because it seems like it's becoming more prevalent. I think it seems pretty self-explanatory. An empty ball screen, as you can see, there's nobody on this side of the court other than the ball handler and
Mm-hmm.
the screener. So there's that is unoccupied, that corner right there. But what do you think is like a benefit of setting a empty ball screen?
Yeah, you'll also notice like Jalen McDaniels, he starts the possession in the left corner, and then when Rozier cuts across the two Iverson screens from Plumlee and PJ, McDaniels clears from the left corner to the right corner. So emptying that corner out, empty side, empty corner, same vocabulary. Basically means there's not another off ball player spotting up on that side of the court, either in the corner, in the wing, or chilling in the dunker spot, which would obviously be like a if you had someone in the post on that side, that would be sort of like a spacing, snafu too. But what it does is it changes up help responsibilities. Um, as PJ sets this screen and then pops, there's no one there to help, right? Like he is wide, he's open. There's no sort of like natural help defender. Same case if he rolls to the basket there's someone to bump him, right? And so if the Bucks want to have Giannis in the drop, like not only did they put Lopez in the drop, but they've got Giannis in the drop
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So you can see like when Rozier comes off this screen, he could shoot the jumper, but because PJ is such a good, pick and pop shooter and has been for several years now, this is a really good action to run at Milwaukee, especially with an empty corner, because they're going to have Giannis in the paint. This is before the Bucks sort of adjusted their scheme for the Hornets. They're going to have him in the drop, and then there's no other help defender. So when PJ pops or slips out, he catches this with a ton of space. And again, the strength of the empty side is that it allows you to pick and roll coverages with different help responsibilities. And in some cases, there isn't going to be a natural help defender in the area, and so you can just very functionally go into clean looks like that. Like that's a really good action for the Hornets. With again, Rozier comes across. I think this maybe even been an after timeout play call, but yeah, it was actually they drew this up. Like this was Steve Clifford called this in the timeout. They come out. Rozier comes across the Iverson screens. PJ comes from the right elbow over, sets the ball screen on Grayson Allen there. Then he just slips out to the corner here. So this is good action. It's something they've run a lot. Like I mean, with Rozier, with PJ, not just this season, even going back to like the James Borrego era. And yeah, those empty corner screens. I mean, everyone not like that's even like a new convention, but as the league and as basketball continues to sort of like try to find not just like more pick and roll dependent, but like um how they can use pick and roll and still be like versatile and still find ways to like bust up a scheme. Empty side is something that allows you to do that. I've actually been watching a lot of randomly been watching a lot of like University of Arizona film from this past season. And that's something, I mean, again, not like this is anything revolutionary, but like the Arizona Wildcats, it's a ton of empty side screens too. Same sort of thing. So it's not just the NBA. This is WNBA. This is college basketball. Like teams want to find these empty side looks and try to see if they can use that to create, basically little like pockets of space as the Hornets do here.
Yeah, it's all about the space that's created. And I know I don't have the clip as long as you did on Twitter, and we can talk about what happens after the play as well. But one thing I did notice on this play, or a couple things, obviously you talked about how both Giannis and Lopez are kind of lurking here in the paint, and Allen, as he is fighting over the top of the screen here, is trailing Rozier. So Rozier maybe potentially could take the shot because they are kind of dropped a little bit, but you've got three
Yeah.
players in the general vicinity of Rozier. Now, one thing that I did notice, which will actually come into play a couple clips down the line, is the screen that Plumlee sets for LaMelo up there, kind of like a little flare
Little
screen, I believe.
flare, yeah. And again, with Lopez dropped, like Lamelo could be open for like a off flare screen three on the right side of the court. Again, this was like really nice action by really simple, but like conceptually perfect to go at the Bucks with two different guys in drop. Like you just don't see that all that much in the NBA. Like the Bucks are really unique in that regard. I do kind of wonder. Like maybe they should just switch these things. And I mean, I guess like if you switch this, you're gonna have Grayson Allen guarding PJ, and like if the Hornets wanted, they could try to post that up or
Yeah.
isolate that. It's it's something that they will do some with PJ, but it's not like a go-to thing, and it's not like throwing the ball into Joel Embiid with a mismatch, to post up. So when they decide to guard these screens like this, it doesn't, uh, it's going to leave some stuff open. The hope is that like Rozier just takes like a mid-range jumper, and instead they give up a catch and shoot three from the corner, which is not ideal.
Yeah, so I did notice the little flare screen. I thought that was going to be an option, or I'm sure it was an option, but I think he just took the simple play. And one thing
Hmm.
I did notice, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but the way that Rozier passes the ball to PJ, it kind of is away from him, and it
Yeah.
creates a little bit more of that extra space that Giannis has to close out. So I don't know if that was a bad pass. He's going to claim, "Oh no, I did that intentionally to get PJ drifting a little bit farther away from the contest," and
Yeah.
he's able to drill that corner three. So, do you remember what happens directly after this play? Wasn't there a steal on the opposite end?
Yeah, well, the play right after this is the Bucks come down and they actually go empty side pick and roll. I think it's empty side pick and roll with Giannis, and I can't remember who the ball handler is. I think it's maybe is it Connaughton, um, but they run that at PJ. So PJ's the screen defender because Giannis is the one screening and diving. And PJ doesn't switch either. He sort of like drops a little bit, which is something the Hornets do that, but it's not like it's probably not like a go-to coverage. This is where you see them having to adjust for Giannis. But PJ gets a steal, he hits it ahead, and then Rozier hits a three. And so it's those two guys sort of connecting, and flipping roles from passer to shooter within the span of what amounts to a couple of seconds. And it does, again, it speaks to PJ's two-way versatility. Like having this, not just like a spacer at your four spot, because pretty much everyone has that now, but PJ being a guy that can shoot off movement. Like he's able to adjust to that Rozier pass and slide to his left, catch it, and then shoot it over the top of Giannis. And then a second later, he gets into drop pick and roll coverage on an empty side. He gets a steal, and then he quickly hits it ahead to Rozier. Um, PJ's a really good basketball player. And again, I think this game is fun because to talk about because the Bucks are they're different,
Yeah.
until sort of Charlotte, I think, busted them up a little bit and got them into some of their secondary concepts defensively.
So I may embed that video clip post production to highlight what Brian was talking about. And I actually, in these 7 clips that I have for Rozier, which I think leads to the 3-point shot, I don't think I have many 3-point shots available in these 7 clips. I just thought some of the better ones were just inside the arc. But anyway, clip 4 here. I'm going to go ahead and play. Charlotte is up 38-17 in the first quarter still. Let it play one time through. And we'll talk about it. So that was clip number 4 of 7. There's a lot of bodies here, a lot of bodies in this particular area. I'm not sure if Rozier is supposed to set a screen for McDaniels here. The spacing is kind of bunched up, but it does leave Rozier with a little bit of a DHO, and this whole side is just completely cleared out. Plumlee wants to roll into that space. That's probably the best move there. After the DHO, he's got 3 or 4 Bucks kind of in the vicinity of him. A very good defender on his back, and he keeps Carter there for the most part as he kind of snakes his way towards the paint and really hits a tough floater over Giannis. A lot of Giannis contest in these clips.
Man.
One thing that I do just want to note, again, it could have been, I don't know if it was purposeful, but just he takes a little bit of a dribble to his right sideways before rising. And I'll try to pause it at the point, but it's going to be very difficult just because it's moving. Yeah, well, he goes sideways before he goes up because I don't think he wants to go body to body with Giannis. But Rozier, in his seasons with Charlotte, there have been some down years where he had in the in between game, but there have been several years where he has hit the floater in the mid range shot, and it feels like this game highlights some of his better
Yeah.
opportunities in this area.
For sure, with the drop. I mean, these are ultimate like this possession, like this is the shot that like Milwaukee wants to force teams to take, right? Like this is Javon Carter stuffing Rozier into a phone booth with Giannis. Just Rozier is a talented shot maker and he makes a good look. Again, this was sort of an outlier game for the Hornets. This was literally their most efficient offensive game of the season. They scored almost 1.4 points per possession, on the road against Milwaukee here. And yeah, you can see a different defensive look. This is, Giannis as the defensive 5, Bobby Portis, who's a really nice, reserve 4 or 5, hybrid big guy for the Bucks. He's in instead of Lopez. No Drew Holiday, but Javon Carter, as you noted, is an excellent point of attack defender, an excellent screen navigator. I mean, this is just a really tough shot. Like I think ultimately, like in terms of process, that's exactly what Milwaukee wants to do. Like this is an inefficient shot with a good contest from one of the best rim protectors in the world. Look at Giannis, man, just getting he's so low and explosive in that stance. But Terry, one of the other things too that I did want to mention with this clip, we have talked about Rozier obviously a lot the last 4 years, and I have been, I think, pretty critical of some of his like pick and roll playmaking, scoring, decision making, like wherever that lands up. The one thing I have always noted is that like I think he's best in these sort of like ball screen attack situations when he's able to come off a handoff and catch like
Yeah.
this. And he and Plumlee had like pretty good chemistry in a few different directions this past season, including like Rozier got a lot of like, cut buckets off Plumlee at the elbow or Plumlee, initiating on the break or whatever. And Plumlee's, a guy that you can do some dribble handoff offense through at the elbow. And Rozier found some sources of offense with that last season.
All right, we'll play it through a couple more times, and then we'll get to clip number 5. Clip number 5, I'll go ahead and talk about it as we get to that point. Hornets are up 68-45 in the second quarter. And if you're watching on YouTube, here it comes. I do like the setup of this play, and we'll talk about it after it comes through. I'll pause it. And as we see, Rozier is actually taking the ball up the court. You got Plumlee setting the down screen there for LaMelo. And then Rozier gets the ball out of his hands into LaMelo. And now this is where the flare screen comes into play. I think I mentioned this on clip 3. You've got the flare screen for Rozier. And maybe you want to get a 3-point shot after this, but he kind of drifts inside the arc. And obviously the pass takes him there, and he makes that tough shot. And at the same time, I wanted to make a mention of this, if I can rewind it. JT Thor in that corner over there, Brian, by design or if it's just instinct, he's getting out of that corner. So that leaves more space for Rozier to catch and shoot this. And I think a lot of the movement stuff that we see with Rozier, a lot of it comes behind the arc, but just a note on this play, you're seeing some of the same movement stuff, the off-ball stuff, and getting open. It just happens to be inside the arc where he hits this baseline jumper to put the Hornets up 70-45 with about halfway to go through the second quarter. So he's always been a good movement guy. It
Oh
just
yeah.
a lot of it just seems to be outside the arc, but this one is inside the arc.
For sure. I mean, that's been the thing he's done best in Charlotte, has been his transition from. It is kind of funny that they acquired him to like be the Kemba replacement at point guard, and that pretty quickly became Devontae Graham, and then it became LaMelo. But Rozier, something that they found under James Borrego, and that was part of the offense when it could be this past season, is just how good Rozier is running off of screening actions. Like he has been an elite movement shooter for about 3 or 4 years now. And really, when the Hornets were at their best offensively during the LaMelo era, it's been with like Rozier, really cooking, coming off pin downs and flares and all the creative, baseline runner, floppy action stuff that Borrego used to run. Couple things here. Once again, Lopez, think about what I said earlier with the Hornets finding different ways to attack the Bucks in drop coverage. Like all these half-court possessions for Rozier have been some form of that, right? Think about the Iverson screen with PJ then popping into space. And here with Terry coming off this flare screen, like, yes, he does catch it, inside the arc, but look where Lopez is. Like, so it's forcing a guy. I think it's Grayson Allen there too. It's forcing him to fight over the flare screen because there's no other help. Like he's on an island to defend this because could be in part because JT Thor has cleared out and has dragged Giannis from one side of the lane to the other and freed up a side for Rozier there. So again, they're attacking the space of the drop coverage. And they used a couple different flare screen concepts for Rozier in this game. They had another one too where they would flash Plumlee to like the left elbow, and then Rozier would enter the ball to him, and then he would cut off a flare screen from one of the wings or one of the guards. So same. I mean, it looks different, but it's the same thing. It's Rozier coming off of a flare to try to attack. Probably like Giannis in space, or maybe it was Portis, but just again trying to like find ways to go at the drop space there. And then one of the other things too is like this play, like if you would pause it there, like what the Hornets like to do a lot, and they do this mostly for Gordon Hayward, but without Hayward in this game, and with LaMelo and Rozier, you can see them just like essentially letting LaMelo start the possession off ball and then quickly transitioning to him on the basketball. But usually when they have this little like the Plumlee setting this like almost elbow pin down for LaMelo, usually it's for Hayward. That can be a catch and shoot. Often Hayward catches that ball and he pops out beyond the 3-point arc, and then Plumlee or Mark Williams or Richards, they will usually go like chase, and then they'll go set a ball screen for LaMelo. And instead, he runs out to Rozier. Like I feel like you could almost even see like Milwaukee like getting ready to load up for pick and roll, and instead it's the Plumlee goes out to the other side, and it's the flare screen that they can go after. So that's a play that like in terms of like mirroring and sequencing, it looks a lot like one of Charlotte's like go-to pick and roll possessions. And instead, it turns into a quick hitter flare for Rozier to get a catch and shoot.
Yeah, that's a good point about the Hayward stuff, how they use him in this type of action as well. And clip number 6 is going to be another an assist. I think we had an assist earlier, and we're going to go ahead and let this play out in the third quarter. And there's the assist to Plumlee. Now, Rozier finds himself fairly open on this play. It looks like Drew Holiday is up.
Empty corner pick and
Yep,
roll with
yep,
Lamelo
yep.
and Plumlee
Plumlee.
too.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, but that's kind of how the possession starts. And the kick out pass over here to Rozier. And you've got Drew, who is obviously closing out to him. And I think Rozier does the smart thing here in terms of attacking where Drew came from and attacking that top foot right there and getting back to the middle of the court. We talked about that one possession when we did Nick Smith Jr. about, preventing players from getting into the middle of the court because it does collapse the defense. And he's able to get past Drew, obviously a very, very good defender. And, nothing spectacular about this play, but this is a nice little wraparound pass to Plumlee. It's not something that Rozier is known for. He's not this awesome playmaker, but he makes a couple of smart decisions here in terms of attacking Drew in terms of where he came from, and then just not forcing that shot and getting that pass off to Plumlee. So this is not necessarily something that you think of when you think of Rozier, but definitely something to highlight because this did show up in the game.
Yeah, I mean, again, the importance of Lamelo being able to be the guy that's like kickstarting the action with pick and roll here, and getting creating maybe a little bit of advantage. I would chart this as like a defensive breakdown for Holiday too. Like it's a nice like catch and go maneuver, but like Rozier, I mean he's having to like, it's not a great pass from Lamelo. Like he's got to sort of like stop, one handed on a pass that's a little bit behind him, and even then he's able to still just like immediately glide by Drew Holiday. So it's not a great defensive possession by Drew, but it's still a really nice play by Rozier. He's able to get Brooke Lopez an excellent rim protector off the floor, and he does a really nice job on this little catch and go to set up Mason Plumlee for a finish at the rim. It's really, and give credit to Lopez for trying to like second jump and block the shot. It's nice. It's really good effort on his part, but it's just again Terry did just enough to get him at least into the air, and allow Plumlee to finish that.
Yep. All right, final clip here, and this is a baseline inbounds play where it gets inbounded to Plumlee, and it looks like that's Grayson Allen who is top siding Rozier, trying to prevent him from getting the pass, the DHO in this situation. And he knows, I guess he should know, that there's a lot of help on the baseline. So if Rozier does take advantage of the space, quote unquote space, he's not really going to create any space because there's a ton of Bucks down there on the baseline. So he does shake him in terms of trying to get the ball, and he's able to get the DHO. This is nothing more to me than just going and making a play. He gets his body into Grayson Allen right there, does a little spin, fades away, hits a tough shot. We've talked about this on a previous clip. He's just able to make some tough shots in the mid range sometimes, and uses his body to create space. I don't know if there's another option here, Brian. Like, could he have done something different? I'm not really sure. I mean, maybe there's
Maybe like Portis helps a little bit at like the nail
yeah,
area. So like maybe you could try to kick it to PJ
right.
for a catch and shoot three. But Portis doesn't like fully commit. It's not
Oh,
like super duper because I mean I think it's worth pointing out on pretty much all of these clips, like Lamelo and PJ are on the court too. And I mean obviously they played together a lot. I mean I guess Plumlee is as well, but and certainly those guys played together a lot in this game. And Rozier was just on the heater, hitting some really tough shots, including this possession. But like having those guys, having Lamelo to get the possession started, with pick and roll or make a connecting pass or a hit ahead in transition, and just like again, I think PJ's spacing, keeping the paint a little less cluttered, with maybe some early help. On this possession, it's Portis, but on other times it could have been someone like Giannis.
Yeah, that was the only thing that I noted too. Like, could he have done something differently? I did take down in the notes a pass to PJ. Portis really has it covered though. I feel like he just shows just briefly, but he's able to probably recover to any kind of pass. But I think
I mean, on three of these clips we've shown that were like the little like mid range paint shots that Rozier hit. I think the Bucks covered all of them well. Like the one
yeah,
in transition where he's cross matched on Lopez, and then a few of these other ones too, like the one with Javon Carter in rear view pursuit, with Giannis with and drop and with a good contest. Like, look, they had it rolling that night. Terry is a good shot maker. It's why he's made a lot of money and why he will continue to make a lot of money because the guy can really. He's like maybe you would some people would gripe with this adjective, but like he's a pretty special shot maker. When he gets hot, which maybe we didn't see as much last season as we have in years past. Um, he can take your scheme and to quote Steve Jones from the dunker spot, he can take your scheme and throw it over the top rope, which is like kind of what Rozier and PJ really and LaMelo to an extent really did in this game.